Hey, you came back. You didn't forget about me. You're now one of my top 10 favorite people.
Just don't tell the others.
So today I'm going to be doing another thrift store makeover. This is the second time I'll be attempting one of these, so we'll see how it goes. I plan on turning this wooden dollhouse into Baba Yaga's house. Baba Yaga is a witch who usually lives in a hut that's standing on chicken legs. Obviously, this is a bit more of a fancy looking house. A sunflower manor of sorts. Upgrades, people. Upgrades. I'm not going for the scary look today, more of like a whimsical looking look. So I started off in my usual manner of chopping off everything and anything that I don't like. Severing doll limbs and random things is actually pretty fun. I do enjoy it.
Hello.
For this murder, I used my weapon of choice.
A butter knife?
I wasn't really liking the window things jutting out of the rooftop. Not sure what purpose they serve, but yeah, that's just not the look I was going for. They were just glued on there, so they came off pretty easy.
They didn't even put up a fight.
I also hacked off the bottom because, I don't know, it's ugly and it's in my way, so of course it had to go. The problem now is that there's a huge gaping hole in the bottom of the house. Normally I'd just set the dollhouse down on the table and
voila,
the hole is gone. It's like magic.
Wow.
Except the only thing is that I'll be sculpting some chicken legs for the house to walk on, so I can't just have it be bottomless. So to patch that hole, I cut up some cardboard and glued it to the bottom. I'm going to be using epoxy sculpt today because it's air dry and I didn't feel like baking the dollhouse would be a good idea.
Voy a cantar esta canción con mucho cariño de mi corazón.
I used it to add a roof. I basically just layered on some epoxy over the roof and used a pencil to go back and forth over it to add texture just to make it look a little more interesting, which looked alright. It was okay.
No.
But that wasn't enough texture, so I went in with a clay tool to add some more texture. There. That's good enough for now. And since my cardboard bottom isn't very sturdy, I went back and layered some epoxy over that as well. The cardboard just basically acts as a good base for the epoxy to go on top of, something for the epoxy to stick to. I don't know why I'm talking like I know what I'm doing. Don't be fooled. Obviously I don't. I'm usually just experimenting and having fun and making really wonky looking things. Most times there really is no method to my madness. Here I'm using one of my clay tools to make some feathers. The house has a chicken butt. It'll make more sense once I add some chicken legs. Well, it won't really make sense, but yeah. It's a little unconventional, but that's just how Baba Yaga's house is. I'm not making this stuff up. I guess I couldn't leave good enough alone, so I fiddled around with the roof some more. It was looking alright, but I thought it might look even better with some shingles. I used like a scoopy tool to make some shingle looking details on top, and I used a sharp tool thing to define some shingles. I wanted this house to look old and run down, kinda like it's falling apart. That way, if the house does start cracking, breaking, or anything of the sort, it just looks like it's part of the aesthetic. I found a little stick outside. I didn't just randomly decide to pick up a stick. That's the one there. I actually went looking for it just for this house. So I got this little stick and I glued it on to act as a lantern holder. I wanted to go all out and buy like a little mini dollhouse lantern for the entrance to hang on this branch, but it costs $21 for a single light that's smaller than my pinky fingernail. Well, there goes that idea. Clearly the treasury cannot afford such expense, so I decided I'm just going to sculpt a lantern. We'll just pretend Baba Yaga forgot to pay her electricity bill or something. I went around adding some epoxy and poking it with a sharp poker tool to make it look like moss. Poke, poke, poke. Does it look like moss yet? I thought about getting some fake moss, but I figured I could just fake it. Hopefully it'll start looking more like moss after it's painted. Baba Yaga doesn't really fly around on a broom, by the way.
That's basic.
Instead, she flies on a mortar and pestle. Clearly, she's a fancy witch. Like I mentioned before, her house walks around on chicken legs, so that's what I'm sculpting right now. Some chicken feet.
Buck.
I used some floral wire to give each of the legs some much needed stability. Could always use more of that.
I love you. I love you too.
I originally wanted to make the chicken legs longer and skinnier, but the epoxy was hardening and I was running out of time. But I also thought that if the legs were too long, then the house would just tip over, so I instead settled for some chubby chicken legs to keep everything grounded. I added some toes and toenails, and then I added some texture to the feet using a sharp tool. At this point, I decided to take a short break from working on the chicken legs to make the tiny little lantern that I had my heart set on earlier. I wasn't about to pay an arm and a leg for one of those fancy schmancy doll lanterns, so here I am struggling away, attempting to make one myself. Yeah, I think it turned out pretty decent. I can't complain. At the end of the day, it got the job done, and that's what matters. Anyways, back to the chicken legs. To attach these fine legs to the house, I used some more epoxy. To add some more character to the house, I used a sharp tool to make it look puffy like feathers to match the bottom of the house, and then I waited for everything to dry. After all that was sculpted and it was done hardening, I went ahead and spray painted everything a coat of white. Kinda like using gesso, except without all the time and effort it takes to do things the right way. Super low energy stuff. I don't know if there's anything necessarily wrong with spray painting, but yeah.
It's done now.
And now I'm finally ready to go in with some color. I unintentionally copied Captain Gingerbeard's color scheme. I didn't mean to, it just kinda happened. I guess I'm unoriginal, but I really do like these colors. They look very rustic, at least to me. So the house is brown. I will be going over it with some yellows and other browns later to try and make it look more like an old wooden house. This is just supposed to give it the illusion of a well-aged, wandering farmhouse. Every hipster's dream. I do have a witch that would love to move into this home.
Ooh, a rock! Yes!
But the door is like glued shut, and this is the point where I started to realize this might just be a birdhouse. Unbelievable. A very nonsensical looking birdhouse at this point. Would definitely keep the squirrels away. So at least there's that. I could have gone with a normal, more neutral color for the roof, but of course I had to work purple in somewhere. So here we are with a purple roof. I'm not gonna lie, I definitely think the purple roof makes Baba Yaga's house a whole lot cooler. I also painted the chicken's fluff at the bottom, or the chicken feathers, purple as well. After all, can't ever have enough purple. If you don't want to be chased around by purple chicken legs, you should consider selling your soul to me by subscribing to my channel. Make sure you ring that bell icon and select all so you don't lose me on the internet or miss any videos. I post new videos
Every Friday.
anyways. If all that purple isn't popping enough for you, I painted all the moss with bright greens and yellows. I used 2 different colors of green and a yellow to give it some added depth. There's just a ton of moss sprinkled everywhere. The feet of the chicken are a fleshy color. I could have gone with a bright orange for them, but no. I felt like that would be too crazy with everything already going on. I'll admit, the flesh color I used instead is a bit weird. Kinda chaotic, which for me makes it even better. Plus, I think the whole chicken legs thing is cool. I like the idea. I went in with dark purple again for the toenails. It almost looks like very edgy nail polish, which I don't really mind. It's an edgy chicken, I guess. The grass around the base of the house is going to be green,
Obviously.
just creating separation between that and the chicken's purple feathers. I wanted it to look like there's a lot of moss and plants growing all over the house, so I used a sponge and small paintbrush to add some more small patches of moss around the door and windows and stairs. With some epoxy, I went around the base to add some grass and rocks, and then I painted the base and everything on it. For the lantern I sculpted earlier, I decided to paint it
Black.
I also kind of wanted it to appear like it was glowing with a green, eerie light, so that's why I painted it green too. And since Baba Yaga's known for a fence made of human corpses circling around her house, I decided to keep that memory alive by making a fence. Except it's just little bits and pieces of a normal wooden fence. Had to tone it down, for I fear the wrath of the sparkle butts. I made those little pieces off camera as well. I guess I'm still new to this whole YouTube thing. I then added the lantern, and I also made a little swing at some point off camera, so here's that swinging on the side of the house. The house ended up looking kinda friendly, welcoming. I don't know, maybe Baba Yaga's the kind of witch who invites you in and then eats you alive.
If you don't want to end up as Baba Yaga's breakfast, I suggest you click on the top right or bottom left. Hurry up now, she's starving.